Welcome to my TikTok friends, the podcast about the app where everyone goes viral. I'm your host, Dan Vadeboncoeur, and I apologize for the delay in this episode. It seems like this is becoming a monthly podcast, although that was not my intent. I really did want to have one of these come out once a week, but you know, life gets in the way. Things happen, I get busy, and sometimes I'm not able to line up the guests that I'm looking for. So all those factors play into this, but I promise to keep posting episodes of the interesting people I meet on TikTok for your enjoyment. This week is a great guest. I have Sway. Sway plays an amazing game on TikTok where he basically asks people to guess the theme song from a TV show or a song or score associated with a certain movie. But he also asks people to respond in a different way. So it's not just like name this movie or name this TV show. He asks for favorite quotes and favorite characters and all kinds of different things. And he really just has a lot of fun on TikTok. So we talk about that. We talk about our love of movies in general and shared love of horror films, but we also talk about the state of film, the state of the Hollywood strike, all that stuff happening, and also just things about TikTok. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and I'll be back at the end of the show to talk a little more. But you play another game on TikTok. It's just the kind of like name your tune, right? That's kind of your thing.
Absolutely.
But for movies and TV, basically. But where did this begin for you?
So this began for me with just a love of movies and television and music. And I wanted to kind of find a way to incorporate them all together, but I really didn't know how to do that yet. So when I first started in TikTok, I think it was back in 2020, I did a couple things. I did some trend stuff and whatnot. And then I just I had this visceral memory in my brain of, going to sleep or having my parents tell me it's bedtime and I'm going to sleep. And I remember laying in bed and I remember them watching a show and it just freaked me out so bad. Every time I heard this theme song, it gave me nightmares. I was so messed up by it. And it turns out that was the Unsolved Mystery theme song. Still to this day just messes me up. So I'm like, to be sure, I'm not the only person in the world who has this memory. So I'm just going to film it and put it out there. So I did a TikTok one day and just kind of talked about it. And man, you know what? I was not the only person who had that experience. And it just kind of blew up from there. And everyone was like, yeah, that's a great one. So I was like, you know what? Let me do another one. And as it kind of progressed, it turned into different TV show theme songs that you remember, different movies that you remember. It just kind of organically grew and evolved from there. But it all started out just with me kind of remembering that, eerie feeling of hearing William Shatner's voice and that theme song. And I was like, there's got to be other people out there that have experienced this. To be sure, it's not just me.
I think you've done all kinds of different time periods as far as TV shows go, but there's a lot of focus on the 80s, and that's that era of not only your childhood, but also of really the era of the TV theme song. I want to say there's kind of they don't do it the same way as they used to, right? Where they had to set up the whole show with the song at the beginning, right?
The theme song really was a big, huge part of the TV show, I think, back in the day, especially in the 80s. You had some crazy, iconic writers, people who do music, composers, making these amazing theme songs that weren't just like, oh, I heard that. That's a great TV show theme song. That's a great intro. But you listen to them in your car, you hear them, the quality and the effort put into these things were amazing, because I really believe that was a huge part of marketing because of radio. A lot of this stuff, we didn't have internet back then. We didn't have, TikToks and things to do. So the hook on the TV show theme song had to really, really impact, and it had to get people's attention. So I really feel like the effort and the quality and the continuity of the songs back then were just subpar. 80s was like the golden age of TV theme songs for me.
Absolutely. And similarly, because we had to watch it every week, there was no skip intro or anything like we have now, right? Songs would become burned in our brain. We would listen
100%
every week to watch the film. I mean, sometimes you're off in the kitchen getting something, but you're still hearing that song as you're getting ready to watch your show. So that's part of the tradition of
Absolutely.
So what are some of the songs that people have responded to the most, would you say?
Unsolved Mysteries was a big one. That was a big one. Everybody had that same kind of visceral response. Another really, really big one was let's see, Perfect Strangers. Oh man, everybody loves the Perfect Strangers. It's in your head right now. I can see your face right now. You're just like, oh, you heard the scream of standing. Like you're like, yes, it takes you right back there. You want to scream it. I know you do, man. I know you do. That's right. Everyone wants to scream it.
The world looks perfect, nothing to rearrange. Sometimes you just get a feeling like you need some kind of change. No matter what the odds are this time, nothing's gonna stand in my way. This flame in my heart, like a long lost friend, gives every dark street a light at the end. Standing tall on the wings of my dream, rise and fall on the wings of my dream.
Best theme song ever written. That song perfectly sets up that show. Just everything about it is amazing. I love it.
It's just so good. It's so good, and I don't understand how you could there's no way you could possibly skip past that. Like it's just you have to. If there was a skip button back then, there's no way I would hit it on that theme song. It's just too good. It's too good.
What else?
Bosom Buddies was a good one. People really enjoyed that one. The one that caused some of the biggest controversy was DuckTales. I went out on a limb and I was like, look, I think DuckTales is one of possibly the greatest TV show theme song of all time. And you would have thought I would have smacked some people's mothers out there. They were like, there's no way DuckTales is the greatest, because there's two schools of thought. I mean, you've got DuckTales people, then you've got Rescue Ranger people, which is also very valid. I can't shut that down. But everyone kind of has their own flavor. Everyone kind of has their own favorites. But to me, DuckTales has just an amazing bass line. It gets, the groove is really good. Like I will listen to it in the car, and it doesn't matter how tough you are, how cool you are, you have to woohoo when you hear it. It's like, when a toddler hands you a cell phone, like no matter how tough you are, and they go like this, like you answer that phone. I don't care how cool you think you are, you answer the phone. When DuckTales is on, you woohoo. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and that again came with the tail end of that's the late 80s, right? Early 90s. But that's also speaking to the next generation, because I find it's like I was a little bit older when that show came out, so I wasn't as invested in it. But again, very, very catchy song, and people just love that. Now, as far as movie, you kind of done some movie stuff as well. Is that a little more difficult to nail down because we're not listening to it as much, or because movies don't come out as often, or how does that kind of stuff work?
So the movie stuff is a little more difficult with some of the newer films and things like that. But some of the older stuff, like, again, it kind of go back to the drawing board, to my original kind of feelings. Like, hey, I hear this song and it immediately takes me back to a place. So I'm like, what songs do I hear? And it immediately takes me back to a movie. Like when I hear, Cry Little Sister, I go right to Lost Boys. I feel like everybody goes right to Lost Boys. So I'm like, let's start with something like that and see, originally it wasn't scores or actual cinematic pieces. It was just songs. And then it kind of evolved into there where I was like, well, I really like scores as well. So, now I can put on like a Hans Zimmer piece from Interstellar, and the majority of people will know exactly what that is from.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few composers out there, him and John Williams, Danny Elfman, I guess would be another one, right? Some that you would recognize immediately. But yeah, it is the songs, really. For a lot of movies, there's a connection to a pop song or some kind of hit song. Sometimes it's like, have you done like Rockstar by Smash Mouth or anything like that?
So I've thought about that one, but it's tied to so many different things. With the other hook to my videos and things like that is I'm a big movie person, and I got that type of memory that can remember a lot of different quotes and things like that. So I also wanted to kind of incorporate that, being kind of a little bit of a marketing space as well, looking at analytics. I wanted people to engage with my content. So that's why I asked people to phrase their answer or place their answer in the form of a quote from the movie. So now we've got people quoting lines. We've got people who identify this stuff. It kind of ties it all together as well. I just think it's really fun. I think it's really, really fun.
Yeah, and you get more interaction in the comments that way. I think people are like scrolling through, instead of getting a bunch of people saying Lost Boys over and over and over again, you got people saying, oh, I love this character, I love this character, I love this, I have this memory of seeing this movie, and they're all kind of connecting around their memory about this film, right?
Right, because I feel like if you have like the answer, once someone has the answer, you're kind of disengaged to go, well, someone already put that, I'm not going to put that. But you can always look and go, well, someone hasn't put my quote. Now I have people who go, oh, someone already got my quote, so I can't answer. But there's millions of different lines from different movies, and it's funny because you always get one really obscure one, and I'm like, Wow, you came up with that. All right, I'm following you. That was really good. You're my people for sure. Like, there's always that one really random, obscure backline quote that you're like, wow, really? All right.
Yeah, I find it's a lot of fun. I don't always answer because I don't always know. Obviously, the theme songs I do find to be a bit easier, especially if they're from that era that we were talking about. But you know, it's always fun if I have a memory or some kind of a something to share, some kind of experience to share around that film. So what else? Anything else you do on TikTok? You post other fun stuff I see sometimes.
I do, kind of anything that I can. I really enjoy stuff around movies and TV show theme songs, but I'll do funny stuff every now and then. I'll do stuff with my family as well. I had a really, really, really fun post with my son, my oldest son. Being in the movie space, I really enjoy it. Being in the 80s space, I really enjoy it. But surprisingly, I'm a big horror movie fan, and Scary Movie TikTok have just embraced me to no end. And I'm so grateful that Scary Movie TikTok has embraced me. It's just the best group of people. I love them so very much. I'm a big Scary Movie fan, and my oldest son really, really wanted to watch scary movies. And he's approaching the age where I'm like, okay, that's fine. And he kept bothering me and bothering me. He's like, Dad, I want to watch a scary movie. I want to watch a scary movie. And I'm like, hey, you're not ready yet. Let me think about it. Let's pick something good. And as he got older, the smack talk just escalated and escalated and escalated to the point where there was just an overconfidence. There was an abundance of overconfidence for this child. And I was like, all right, it's time for you to learn today. So I was like, you know what, son? I got something for you. Let's do this. So we sat down and we watched his first scary movie. And the very first scary movie I showed my son was The Mist.
The original.
So yes, Stephen King's The Mist. So he enjoyed that ending very, very much so, to a point where we made a TikTok about it. And he was like, I need to tell your people what you did to me. And it was just amazing. The response we got from that was amazing, because I was like, it just goes to show you, son, that not all scary movies have to have, crazy chainsaw guys or anything rough. Like, Stephen King can hurt you, just in your brain too. There's different levels to this. And he was just like, why would you do that for my very first scary movie? And I was like, hey man, you wanted the smoke? You got it. Just remember that. So
that is a great choice, because most people would go with like a Halloween or even Scary Movie, like ease them in with a comedy or something like that.
Right, which was my intent. So my first scary movie, the reason I did that is it kind of tied back to my mom. My mom did that to me when I was young. I kind of did the same thing. I had that overabundance of confidence and was talking trash to her. So she took me to see Pet Sematary, and I'm a big animal person and I love dogs, and I saw Pet Sematary and she's just smiling at me the entire time we're walking out. And I'm just like, why would you do that? And she was like, hey, are you not happy? Are you not entertained? Is this not what you wanted? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it stuck with me for so long. So I was like, I'm glad I get to pass that on to my son as well.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff really, I think, goes well on TikTok when they're talking about intergenerational things where, this is, I'm not a huge fan of like the Gen X versus millennial fighting that goes on or anything like that, but I find there is a lot of people talking about like what things were like back in the day, and then we have like young people kind of feeding into that as well and learning from those experiences. So it's kind of
the Gen X versus millennial, it's tough, because I feel like there's some of us that are born kind of in that middle period where like I definitely have a lot of Gen X tendencies, but I'm technically a millennial. Like I didn't grow up with the internet. I had to come in when the streetlights came on. Like I remember, riding bikes everywhere. Like I didn't grow up with this. I remember the original sound of the internet. Like it was not how we think it is today. And so I think there's a good bleed over between the two for sure. And it's definitely not something I think we need to verse each other with, because, Gen X is hardcore. They are tough. And if you need something done, they will get it done. But we need millennials too, because someone has to convert our PDF forms into other things that we can email to people. I'm just saying, like, it's a tough world out there, man.
I am Gen X and I can do that. So I'm pretty capable, I would say.
You are very tech savvy.
Well, let's not go crazy here. Talking about theme songs, have you done like newer stuff, like maybe Game of Thrones or anything like that, or do you just stick to the older stuff?
So I have done some newer theme songs. Surprisingly, they're still just as popular. Like I've done, I think one of the newer, I say newer, but like one of the newest ones I did a little while ago was Ted Lasso. And I love that show much. So I love that show so very much. I'm very big on mental health as well. And Ted Lasso just has this enormous space in my heart now, just because of the quality content they have and the focus they have on mental health. And it seems like as soon as I did that one, everybody chimed in with, yes, this is amazing, because who doesn't love, Roy Kent or Jamie Tart? Jamie Tart, surprisingly, may be the most mentally healthy person I've seen in a long time. Like he does a great job. It's a good character arc. And people really pick up on it. I've done Breaking Bad. I feel like you can hear the first 3 or 4 seconds of Breaking Bad and you instantly know what it is. If you hear the first couple keys of The Office, you're going to know exactly what that is. Like, it's just one of those things that I think we all identify. If you watch TV, some people are not onto TV as much, but I feel like those shows in that era, I mean, they're pretty popular. People seem to understand and get them pretty quickly. And then you always have a favorite line from one of those shows, and it's a good way. The other thing is once you put your line out there, people are scrolling through the comments, and I have a great community that has decided to follow me and they engage with each other a lot. So half the time, the funnest thing for me is to watch other people comment back and forth to other people. And inevitably, you always get somebody starting a line, and then the next person gives the next line, and the next person gives the next line. And then we've got like a table read going through all of my comment section. I'm like, man, TikTok is great. Like the things you would never think happen, TikTok is just full of that.
It is. Lately, though, I've noticed a bit of a change as far as movie content goes because of the writers' strike. Are you following any of that stuff at all?
I am. So
Yeah.
I am definitely following the UGA and the SAG-AFTRA strike.
SAG-AFTRA as well. Actors and writers at this point, yeah.
Yep. So once that was announced, I kind of made a post about it and said I was not going to talk about any new related content, any new TV shows coming on. I was definitely going to keep a solidarity of that. I'm not a member of the UGA or SAG-AFTRA, but movies and television is a space that I love. And I feel like it's my responsibility for sure to help do what I can, whether it be, I'm a very small creator, but I know opportunities are going to come my way. We've all gotten those emails or people like, hey, do you want to do this? Or, hey, would you be interested in that? And I feel like it's a very slippery slope. Someone can dangle something right in front of you and, it looks good. And we've all seen 2 or 3 people on TikTok that have decided to kind of put their own personal gains in front of the greater good. And it's just not a good look. It's not a good look, especially for someone who is a creator in that space. I'm not necessarily a part of that space, but I create in that space. So I want to show it as much respect and support as I possibly can.
Yeah, and I don't know that whatever content comes out of those deals will be as good as it could have been had everybody been at work as they should have been, right? Like that's the kind of thing.
Absolutely. The content will still be there. It will still be there. It's still going to be needed. But sadly, your reputation might not be the same coming out as it was going in. And that's a tough thing to manage and to try and heal for sure.
Yeah, what do you make of all this? Because it seems like the system is broken right now, right? Like you've just got all these streaming services who apparently are making a lot of money, although we don't know how much really. They don't show us their books. But you've got people who legitimately don't feel paid or compensated properly. You need to fix it, but what is the solution here, do you think?
The solution is going to be tough because I know people are wanting a fair, first off, they want a fair wage. And they're working on a system that is in dire need of an update. The last I did a little bit of research, and that model is from decades and decades ago. You haven't introduced anything, especially with the residuals and stuff. I've seen some of the actors and creators post what they're getting for residuals, and it's like $20 off of a show, or $15. And I'm like, that is crazy. And especially when you're not taking into account streaming services with Netflix and things like that. I can't tell you how many times I've just turned The Office on just for something to be on the background if I'm doing something else, or having, I've watched it a million times, and I can't believe that, residuals for things like that just aren't incorporated into people's, effort. I'm watching the show. I believe fair pay should be involved, but at the same time, it also kind of turns into the economy as well. Things are pretty rough. Things are more and more expensive, and cost of living is going up. So I feel like a fair wage for them, it may have been a fair wage 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And now, especially with the cost of living going up, it's really, really, really upside down. It's really, really lopsided. So, but I find that's kind of true in a lot of spaces as well. Not just entertainment, not just the entertainment and the writers as well, but and everywhere, in medical and your service industry. Like it's tough out there, man. It's really, really tough out there.
Yeah, I was talking or watching some videos, and they were talking about how the landscape has changed, right? It's not the way they used to make TV doesn't exist anymore. Pilot season, all these things they used to do. I mean, it still does to some extent with some of the networks, but Netflix and these different streaming services are doing things differently, and the system hasn't shifted to compensate the people properly who are involved in the creation of it, right? So yeah, right. I do believe they will find a solution. It's just going to take time. And so, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was going to post, like, I did this whole thing, and I didn't realize it was going to happen at the time. I was in the middle of my top 5 nuclear war movies, counting down to Oppenheimer, because I was excited about Oppenheimer. For the first time in a long time, I've been excited to go see a movie in the theater. And then I'm like, now people are saying we should be reviewing it. I'm like, okay, fine, I won't review it. Still did my 5 movies, because those are all previously released movies that have been out for a long time, but I didn't go see Oppenheimer, and I'll wait to review it later. Because, yeah, everyone else seems to be waiting, and everyone seems cool with that.
Yeah, it's definitely solidarity type of thing. It's you have a kind of a plan, you have content that you have, you kind of get into a groove, and then something like this happens. And, it's always, in my experience, it's always best to pause and just think. I know TikTok is very much people like, hey, you got to post every day, you got to post at a certain time, you have to, stay on your algorithm and make sure things don't drop off. But common sense, man, if there's something you're not sure of, think, stop, wait, ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. I feel like so many people, you don't ever want to give forth the image that you don't know what's going on, or hey, you're kind of confused in something. No, man, that's totally fine. If you don't know what's going on, ask somebody, be informed. Don't just kind of post something and go, I saw someone post like this, or I think this is okay. Like, there's tons of resources, there's tons of people you can ask, there's a million different ways to make sure that you don't make a misstep, or you don't put something out there, especially on the internet, that will never die. It's going to be out there forever. So I'm a firm believer in, hey, if something's going on, do some research, talk to a couple people, wait just a minute. So if you don't post for a day, 2 days, 3 days, that's fine. It's okay. It's better for you to wait and do the appropriate research and see how, what aligns with your interests and where your heart is, rather than to put something else kind of halfway done and then go, oh no, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I need to pull that back, or that's already been stitched 20,000 different times. Now I'm on a different side of TikTok. This is not good for me. Like,
it's always scary when you get over those TikToks.
With TikTok, yeah, TikTok is sometimes it's good to be the quickest person and the first person to something, but when it comes to serious, like really important issues, just pause for just a minute, take a breath, do some common sense, think, do some research, maybe step away from the platform and talk to a person in real life. Like, there's tons of different perspectives. And that's personally one of the things I really like to do, is to get different perspectives. Like, I don't want to just ask people that think just like me, because then I'm essentially not going to grow at all. I'm not going to learn anything. I love to hear different perspectives from people who think the complete opposite. And just because we think completely opposite does not mean we're not cool, does not mean we're not friends, does not mean I can't learn something from you, because you're looking at things in a completely different way. And I'm 100% behind that growth and behind that communication. And at the end of the day, we may still completely disagree, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that says we have to hate each other, or we have to be completely opposite on that. Like, hey, I disagree with a lot of people on some people don't think Shawshank Redemption is the greatest movie in the world. And that's fine. I'm accepting of that.
Okay. But that's your number one, that's your go-to.
Obviously they're wrong, but it's okay. I still have love for them. There are some people that think Sharknado isn't a masterpiece. I'm sorry. I feel bad for them, but we can still be friends. We can still talk about other stuff.
Good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that, because I don't think that's a masterpiece. But Shawshank Redemption is very good. One thing, I don't know if you've noticed, have you been to the movies lately, to the theater?
I haven't been in a little bit. Let's see. I haven't been. The last time I went was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Okay, so that's not still fairly recent. Like, I would say, I know a lot of people who haven't been this year. Like, it's just not something you go as often as you used to. What has the experience been like for you, as far as like the movie going experience, going to the theater?
The movie going experience, going to the theater, is just, I'd like to say it's a little bit more crowded, a little more, I want to say popular, but again, I think people are getting a little discouraged because the prices of things are going up and up and up. And I think that is definitely discouraging people. Back in my day, we could catch a matinee for, $6 or something like that. You could go to the movies for $10-15 with the popcorn. And now, I pay my price for a ticket. And if I want a popcorn and a drink, it's $20 just for that. And, another $15, $10 for a ticket. And I'm looking at going to the movies, just me alone, we're pushing $30-$35. And, that's not totally undoable, but it does make me check and go, oh, movies is something I should probably start budgeting for now. It's not something I can just go, hey, it's like the Starbucks drive through, like, hey, I can get this. It's like, hey, at $30-$40 a pop, like, I have to really check and look and say, all right, how much am I spending? Like there's 4 or 5 movies out I want to see this week or next month or something like that. I'm like, okay, all of a sudden that's $150 bill that I hadn't, planned on that might wreck my budget. I should probably do something about that.
Yeah, and that's when I find like when I take my kids, it's a couple $100 easy, right? And you take the family to
100%.
the movies, and that's become so that's a monthly event. That's not a weekly event. That's not something you do every week. And then they go there, and I'm sure it's the same in the States as it is in Canada, where you go to the theaters, the big ones, and they have like a big arcade with video games to play and stuff like that, and a bunch of fast food options for you to have. Like there's all kinds of ways for you to spend your money once they get you there, right? So they're not helping with all this. It's just adding to the experience, and so therefore you're right. It becomes a thing you can't do as often just because of the cost of it.
Yeah, I'm married and I have 3 kids, so it's 5 of us to go to movies. So if all 5 of us go and it's $30 a piece, all of a sudden I'm like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, after a movie, they're like, you know what? We should grab some food. And I'm like, you know what? I got to go home and get to work because this was crazy right now. We got to pay the light bill, kids. You can't get Milk Duds.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's I think that they're struggling, and that's part of this broken system. I think it's the streaming, it's the theaters, it's the way that we're consuming this media now. Movies and TV shows has changed so fundamentally. They really need to figure out a way to like distribute it to everybody so that everyone can get access to it and watch what they want to watch, but also for everybody involved to get paid a proper amount, right?
100%. I really got comfortable, purchasing movies from home and watching them at home on my couch with the family. It was definitely more affordable, but I'm just one of those movie people that I like to go to the theater. I like to sit down. I like to, I remember the THX sound check that would come on and like blow your hair back. Like that is my jam. I definitely am one of those weird theater people, but the rest of my family is totally happy sitting on the couch in pajamas, being trash pandas and watching Into the Spider-Verse. And I think that's great. I love that too. But I'm like, hey, don't you guys want to go to the movie theater? And they're like, no, this is good here. The dog is here. Why would you leave here? I'm like, it's a valid point. It's a valid point. My wife makes that point a lot. Very valid. But it's just something about that experience, going to sit in a theater and be totally locked in. Like if I'm here at home and I'm watching a movie with my kids, chances are my phone's in my pocket. They're asking questions. My wife, God bless her, I love her to death, but she is not what we like to call a movie person. So much to the point where she's like, I asked her the other day, I'm like, hey, do you want to watch Jaws? And she's like, I don't know that I've seen that. And I almost like fell over. Like I've done a couple of TikToks where I put her on the spot and I showed her some movies and she's like, I haven't seen that. Like, and she's legit serious, like she still hasn't seen Lost Boys. And, it's a tough one. So she is definitely a movie question person. So much is the point where there's something that she does that really she's maniacal in my opinion, because we'll be watching a movie and she will pull out her phone or computer and Google the ending, read it, and then shut her computer and just look at me and smile and go, I know who did it. I know what's going to happen right now. And please don't say anything to me. Please don't talk. But it's better for her to know that ending because she can kind of work backwards and pay attention and things make a little bit more sense to her. And I'm like, you're a madman. You're maniacal. How could you possibly want to do that? I'm like, that's completely opposite of how things should be. And she's like, no, I like it this way. Like, oh my gosh.
She must read the last page of the novel when she's reading. Right?
Yes, she is 100% a first 2 chapter and then the last page chapter. Like she went into Harry Potter and like 30 minutes later, she's like, Snape killed Dumbledore. I'm like, oh, you can't do that. Like, that's definitely her type of vibe for sure. And I'm just like, man, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But I can't get locked in, when I'm here. I have too many distractions. Too many people want to either talk to me or my phone's going off or the dog needs to be pet or the trash needs to be taken out or something like that. And when you're at the movie theater, everything goes away. It's almost selfish to a point where you can just sit and focus on nothing but this film for 2 hours. And I feel like I need that perspective to be able to appreciate a lot of the nuances, like especially with score. So I'm big on music score, being locked in the moment, like appreciating everything that Hans Zimmer has put into a score. It's, I'm listening to things going, wow, did anybody else catch that key change? Did anybody else catch that? That was insane. Or I can't believe this. Or, hey, every time this character comes on, this little trill comes on. Like, I wonder if anybody else notices that. Like, it's this little nuances that I'm not going to be able to lock in and see from home. So I need the theater for those experiences. And I find that those are things that I really, really appreciate, that I just can't get from a home viewing.
Yeah, and one thing I appreciate about your posts, to bring it back to that, is that you do research around that kind of thing, and you talk about who composed the songs, who wrote it, and all that kind of stuff, and get a little history about it, which is great. It also gives a lot of hints, something in your lead up. You do a very long lead up in your videos where I'm like, hey, come on, let's get to let's get to the song, come on, and you're just saying, okay, this, and you're setting it up. And sometimes I know based on the lead up, but a lot of times I don't. So that's good though. I like the way you build suspense with that.
I appreciate it. The lead up is definitely one thing, but there's two parts to the lead up. So I need to build that lead up to get a little bit of anticipation, but also, since I'm playing movies and scores and things that are sometimes copyrighted, I know you've experienced this before. You get copyright hits on things where like, hey, you can't play that or they'll mute my video. I've discovered if you go under X amount of seconds with the song, you won't get copyright. They'll allow you to use that. So, say I wanted to put, anything over a minute of the score, it's going to get flagged. It's going to get taken down. Like I know I did Indiana Jones one time and I played too much of it. I got an error message back that said, hey, you played too much of the song. The video has been struck. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. But I'm like, well, let me try something else. And you can shorten it to X amount of seconds and it's fine. TikTok will clear it, or you can find a cover of it or something like that. But two parts to those things for sure. But I definitely want to show appreciation to composers, writers, and stuff like that. One of the coolest things I ever did was so I'm a big TV show theme song person, and I really enjoy Mike Post. Like Mike Post is like the godfather of all TV show theme songs. I appreciate him so much. And I started doing a series on Mike Post stuff. And one day, randomly, I got a DM, and it was Mike Post's daughter. And she was like, these are amazing. I really appreciate these. I'm showing these to Mike. I'm sending them to him. He loves these. Thank you for doing this. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like Mike Post is watching my content somewhere out there. So I messaged her back and sent her a couple messages. And then I got an email from his son who was like, hey, he loves your content. We'd love to maybe, get him to make a video for you or get connected with you guys or something like that. And I'm like, only in the world of TikTok would I be able to have contact with Mike Post. Like, this is insane. Like, this is one of the reasons why I love this app is you never know, stuff like that can happen. Someone is watching your stuff that you have no idea is watching your stuff. And I really found that encouraging. So anytime I make a Mike Post content now, I'm like, hey, also Mike is watching this stuff. So tell him you appreciate him in your comments. And instead of saying a quote to a movie or to a show, I'm like, let Mike Post know that you love him. And my comment section is just flooded with Mike Post appreciation stuff that I know he sees and I know he appreciates. And I really like that. I like being able to put that love out there for sure. I just think that's really cool.
That is cool. And it's great to see that it is great to make these connections between the people who created this content way back then, right? And now, and we're looking back at it through the lens of nostalgia. But it's a very strong lens. We love nostalgia, right? There's just something about nostalgia that makes us feel good. That's kind of what drives a lot of your content, right?
Absolutely. I just think the nostalgia feeling is just something that people chase because you didn't realize, that quote from The Office is, I wish someone told me, I wish I knew I was in the good old days while I was in the good old days, like it's just such a good feeling because I don't know if it's just a serotonin hit or what, but I remember, what it was like to be back then, what it was like to be a kid and what it was like to just enjoy, TGIF on Friday, coming home and being able to watch Family Matters and Step by Step. And, I remember what it was like running to the bathroom and then having somebody scream, it's starting, and you got to make it over the couch to get there. It's just a world that my children are not going to know, anything about. And I'm like, hey, I got to show you guys this stuff. I'm all about passing that stuff on too. So, which has been great because I've been able to rewatch a lot of these shows. Like, I don't know how many, 12, 13-year-old kids that are currently watching Perfect Strangers, but my middle kid is one of them. And he's like, this is amazing. So I catch him now making Perfect Strangers quotes in the house or to his friends. And I'm like, yes. Let it flow through you, son. Let it flow through you.
That's great. Where are you watching Perfect Strangers? Is that streaming somewhere?
It's streaming on, I want to say it's on Paramount Plus, maybe. I'll have to look and see. It's on one of the streaming services, yes.
I'll check it out. It's probably different for me too, because I'm in Canada. It's always different for Canada.
Yeah, Canada's different. It's just good to pass that on to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, and to see, do you find they like that? They like to see what it was like when Dad was a kid and that kind of stuff?
They love it. They love that stuff. They love watching the shows with me, but also their mom really loves old school television as well. Like, they're watching Dick Van Dyke and the Munsters and I Love Lucy, I Dream of Jeannie, stuff like that, where I'm like, they're not going to like that. No, they're all about it. They love watching that stuff. So, and there's a plethora of that stuff, on TV Land or something like that. It's all about just the retro throwback shows, because I just feel like it's something that we can put in front of them and have them watch and not be guarded or worried that they're going to see something that, you know, might not be appropriate for their age level, or, hey, we really got to pay attention to that just in case we're not watching it all together as a family, because, you know, the things they're putting in TV shows might not be geared towards my kids or might not be geared towards their age demographic. And I don't want to have any, you know, talks with them that they're not prepared to have or things like that. You know, I want that to come from their mom and I together when we deem it's necessary, not necessarily on a Friday night where we're trying to watch pizza or trying to watch the Munsters or eat pizza or something like that.
You know, that kind of stuff's going to be pretty clean. I mean, that, again, but it hits all this stuff. Like for me, the Munsters, even though that was way before my time on TV, there was still reruns, right? There was a ton of reruns of that stuff when we were kids.
Right.
So that was, I think, a big part of my childhood. I used to watch a late night show would just show like 3 hours of old TV shows starting at midnight. And so that kind of stuff I really enjoyed. And yeah, that doesn't seem to exist anymore. I guess it does, sort of. Like there are things that are similar, but not quite the same, right? Out there, right, as far as the internet goes. So yeah, just interesting.
I've gotten a couple messages. I haven't done a show yet. You may be a good person to research in this. I've heard the theme song and it's incredible. It was a Canadian cartoon, and I haven't done it yet. I'm doing some.
I think I know what you're going to say. Is it the Raccoons?
It is the Raccoons.
Oh, fuck yes. Yeah, do that.
I've gotten so many messages on it from fellow creators or like from Canada. They're like, "Why have you not done the Raccoons yet?" And I'm like, "I have not watched the Raccoons. I need to check this out." And I looked at the theme song and I was like, holy smokes, this is amazing. Like this is a great theme song. Like where did this come from? I wish I had this when I was a kid.
No, I think I told you about my dishwashing playlist. Did we that come up in conversation or something?
Yes. I think yeah, dishwashing playlist.
That song is on my the not the opening, but the end credits song. Run from us, something like that. That Run With Us by Glitter Wolf is the song, and that is an excellent song. And yeah, that is the song that everyone remembers with you, because the opening song again tells the story of the raccoons. It's got a narration, it's got all these things, and then the end is just this awesome 80s song underneath the end credits. And yeah, that one is great. You'll get a good response if you do that one.
It oozes 80s for sure. I heard it and I was like, oh man, this is amazing.
And that one I predict will get a response from people overseas, across the pond, and that kind of stuff, because I believe it was on CBC in Canada, which is a public broadcaster, and that kind of stuff gets shared among public broadcasters. Like stuff that was Canadian was shown in the BBC and that kind of stuff. So you might get a good response from people around the world on that one.
Yeah, I did one. I did the Secret Adventures of Dave and Gnome, and I didn't realize that was actually in Spain. That was all produced in Spain. It was shared to us and it was dubbed. And I was like, when I was a kid, I didn't realize that was it. I'm like, this is crazy. So I had a lot of followers saying, hey, I watched this, when I was a kid in Spain. This is awesome. And I was like, I had no idea that this was from a different country. Like, this is wild. Like TV, how about it?
It's just cool how it connects us all together, right? We've all had these shared experiences, watching and experiencing the same things as kids, and now we're just talking about it as grown-ups.
It's just good stuff, man. It's just good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're almost out of time here, Sway. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for the reach out. And I hope if you do another one or you have anything else, at the end of all this, when you get all of us together for a talking head group or a documentary, let me know. I'd love to be a part of this.
That's a great idea. Oh, we're going to do it. Let's do it. Okay. Thank you again, Sway. And thanks for being my TikTok friend.
You too, buddy.
There you go. That's Sway. Super nice guy, genuinely funny, and he posts a lot of great content on TikTok. You should go follow him. I'll put his link in the show notes. And yeah, so going forward, I'm going to post these as I can. It's not going to be weekly. I'm not going to have time to do that. And I have lots of feelers out for different guests to bring on, people I want to talk to. They're just very busy and things are happening, and we're in the summer, so people are on vacation and stuff. So for now, I'm just going to do this organically. and see what happens. So please stay subscribed. Doesn't cost you anything to stay subscribed to this podcast, and we'll see who comes up next in my feed. Until next time, come back when I will introduce you to another one of my TikTok friends.